There we go. Hello everyone, Shabbat Shalom. This is episode 1 of an ongoing series, hopefully, of web episodes of interfaith Jewish worship and exploration of the weekly Torah passages. If you haven't watched the introduction yet, just look for it on the YouTube page or look for it on the website yacobmatityahu.com, yacobmatityahu.com. A couple quick introductory notes. If you're wanting to follow along, most of the prayers are coming from the book, The One Shul Community Siddur. You can find it online on several places. I know Nook, that's where I get it from. Nook e-reader has it. Several others, around $7-8 is pretty cheap. I'll reference the page numbers. I'm assuming they're consistently for everybody, but I'll be using the Nook, so the page numbers are wrong. You might have to search around a little bit. Also, of course, if you want to take a moment to hit the pause button and go gather your bread, your wine, candles, and of course some way of lighting it, matches or a lighter, for later on in the service. These are participatory elements. You're encouraged to participate if you want. So, let us begin. First thing we're going to do is we're going to spend some time creating space, sanctifying this space, this time of worship, as being a sacred space for all of us participating out on the internet and those of us here. So we'll sing a song. It's a song I learned from one of the worship services for Rosh Chodesh led on oneshul.com. The song is called Baraku, and I may mangle it, but I'll do my best. And throughout this, this is kind of I'll repeat it several times. And as you're singing this, imagine yourself welcoming your fellow worshipers into the space, and also imagine the feeling of being welcomed yourself into the space. We'll sing this through several times. At the end, we'll pause for a few moments of silence before moving on. Baraku, dear one, Shekinah, holy name, when I call on the light of my soul, I come home. Baruch, dear one, Shekinah, holy name, when I call on the light of my soul, I come home. Baku, dear one, Shekinah, holy name, when I call on the light of my soul, I come home. Baku, dear one, Shekinah, holy name, when I call on the light of my soul, I come home. Now let's take a deep breath together, centering in this moment, entering into this Shabbat time, this time of specialness, this time of holiness. The next part of the service is the lighting of the candles, and in the Siddur, the One Shul Siddur, it's on page 44. So we'll go there. And by the way, while I'm doing that, looking it up, I want to explain a little bit about the Shabbat table tonight, what I have here. And Shabbat is a time that you can make it special. That my family, we're pretty informal people, but for Shabbat we get out the nice plates. We of course have the candles. We make it a special time, and one of the ways it's done is by putting flowers on the table. Now, all I have here right now are these artificial flowers. They're pretty, but a lot of times people would actually go out and get fresh cut flowers. And our family, we sometimes are pretty cheap. We'll go to the local grocery store and get a $4 bunch of flowers, but it just really makes makes it a more festive time and more celebratory time. And then the candles, and traditionally you can have 2 candles. You can have more candles if you want. I thought about having more candles. I finally just settled on these 2 because they're kind of special to me. These are from India. I bought them at the 10,000 Villages store, the fair trade store in Goshen, Indiana. They have a little, tea candle in the middle. But the outside of them is made out of a recycled bicycle chain, as you can see. And so I really like the recycled element, and the idea of a candle as being something that's burnt, and then a new candle is added. It continues. It's a light that continues. And so, to me, it's kind of deeply symbolic. So, anyway, that's like the candles we have for tonight. And the prayer that's prayed, and my Hebrew skills are limited, so I'm working from transliteration to some of these prayers. So if some of you know Hebrew, I'm sorry if I'm mangling it. I'll do my best. But my Hebrew's had 1 semester, and it's still an ongoing exercise for me to learn Hebrew. So, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotovav v'tziavanu lahadlik neher shel Shabbat. There's the first candle is lit. And then we'll light the second candle. Amen. And then in English. I am grateful to you, Creator of all, for the chance to make myself holy before you by creating light. I love that. By creating light, what a powerful image. Okay, so we have our candles burning. Now it's time for the next part, which is the recitation of the Shema. And this is one of the things I'm putting in a different order in my service, but the Shema is deeply meaningful to me and my family because it's something we sing at bedtime, a version of it. So I wanted to share it, and for us to share it tonight. The Shema, you could argue, is really the central text of Judaism. It's the foundational text. So I'm going to begin saying the blessings before the Shema on page 85, and the Shema itself continues on page 86. Also, when we get to the actual Shema, I encourage you to stand up with me to recite that. So now for the blessings. I am grateful for the rays of the sun. The good light you created reflects your splendor. In it we see the radiance of your throne. Your servants in holiness are eternally grateful for the lights that you have made to shine over us and bathe us in warmth and splendor. In our gratitude, let us remember what it is to live without light. We join your servant David in praying that a new light will illumine Zion, your land, to benefit all of his people. And today I pray also for all the people of Palestine too. That your light will shine there, for justice, for equality, and for peace. And may we all peoples of the earth, soon share a portion of your radiance. And now for the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer Hamerot. May we join your servants on earth and in heaven in proclaiming. And I want to turn the light off for a second for this part. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzvaot Melokol Haaretz Kevodo. Baruch Kavod Adonai Mimkomo. We now stand alone before our King. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Amen. Okay. Now we are to one of the fun parts of the service, and that is the blessing of the bread and the wine. And that begins on page 70 in the Cedar. And so first we begin with the wine. And by the way, I should add, if you don't drink alcohol, grape juice is fine too. And one little thing when you hold the wine glass is tradition to hold it not like this or like this, but rather to hold it like this with your fingers wrapping around the glass. The idea being is your fingers are pointing towards heaven. I also like it because it's a way of just kind of slowly savoring the wine itself. And in this moment, this prayer of anticipation, I like to take the glass and bring it up close to my nose and smell the wine to anticipate the moment of drinking it. Just as we say the prayer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. I am grateful to you, Creator of all, for bringing forth the fruit of the vine. And now let us drink. And then we take our bread. Tonight, I just have matzah bread. Traditionally, you'd have challah bread, which is a beautiful braided bread. It's egg washed. It's gorgeous. But tonight, I have matzah bread, because that's what I have in the kitchen. Also, the advantage of matzah bread for any of your viewers who are vegans is that it is vegan. It's just flour and water, maybe salt, depending on which version you have. I love challah bread. We don't have it, so tonight we get matzah. So we break the bread, and then take some. And if I was here with other people, I would take a piece and hand it to each person. Tradition also is that you break the bread, you don't use a knife to cut it. The idea being is that at Shabbat it's a time of peace, it's a time of shalom, so we don't use knives to cut the bread, we break it apart. Of course, with matzah it's much easier to break, obviously, than using a knife. But anyway, the prayer for tonight for the bread. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. I am grateful to you, Creator of all, for bringing forth bread from the earth. And take it and eat. Now, if you're at home and it's time for your dinner, then please continue to eat, continue to drink. This time to come in some Torah conversation. I want to share some about the Torah passage. If I was there in person with you, we'd be eating right now, so we'd have a conversation of give and take between each other. But instead, it's going to be a little more of a lecture because I'm the one talking on the camera. But I'm hoping we can continue this in other forms. One of the ways we can do that is on Facebook. We do a search for yakubmattot@yahoo.com on Facebook. We can have continuing conversation there. Later on, for later episodes, we may do a live thing where people can chat online with me during the service. But for now, we're doing it recorded. So let's begin our Torah conversation. Tonight, and this, I'm super excited to approach this first of the Parashahs, or I guess it's Parashat, I think is the plural, but the first of the Torah portions, anyway, of this year's, of talking about them on camera like this. The one is for this week is Mattot. And I will be upfront with you. Mattot is one of the most troubling portions I've come across so far. This one is a humdinger. So, we're going to jump into it. Understanding that is going to be challenging. We're going to have to wrestle with the text. And that's okay. In fact, this is, frankly, it's a good thing we have the wine tonight, because this is a service, frankly, a text where we need wine to be able to grapple with the darkness of it. And so, tonight's text, in Mattot, this passage begins in the book of Numbers. In Hebrew, it's Bamidbar. And it begins, Mattot begins in Numbers chapter 30, verse 2. And it continues onward until you get to Numbers, till the end of chapter 32. Now, the context of this text here, we have to enter the context before we move forward, and that is, we are at a low point in the story. Not long before, the children of Israel, the Hebrew people, were liberated from slavery in Egypt. They were let out by their great, great leader, Moses, who could perform great miracles. through the work of their God. And he led them out. And at the time of crisis, the Lord opened the Sea of Reeds. The people crossed through. When they came to the other side, the water crashed back, keeping the Egyptians from continuing to pursue them. This is their story. This is their founding myth. This is what they believe in. And from then on, the next generation, they're wandering in what would be today the Sinai Peninsula. And then this time they're becoming a people. They're learning to get along. They're learning who they are as a people. There's a lot of struggles. There's tensions. There's fights. It is not easy. There's struggles over leadership, and especially the struggles over religion. Moses teaches in the existence of a one God. In Hebrew, in Jewish tradition, you don't say the holy name of God. Instead, they use other words. They use the word for Lord, or Adonai. Or they may sometimes even will say, to be one step removed from that, they will say the name, or Hashem, to refer to God. But this God, who can't be named, even, whose words are in the text now, but was never pronounced now, this God they're coming to understand. And this deity is a fearful God, one who demands ultimate loyalty, but who also is expecting his people to live as a set-apart people, a kadosh people, a holy people, and to live in right relationship with each other. Their journey continues, and the story reaches a dark place. The Hebrew people lose faith. They turn away from the one true God to idols. They then do other things. They leave the values of their faith. And finally, they lose faith in the promise of the promised land they will soon enter into. And so God curses them, says that that generation will not enter the promised land. And then, most shocking of all and heartbreaking of all, the hero of the story, Moses, is told by God that he won't enter the promised land either. That he will not be leading the army in, because at one moment he acted in a prideful, arrogant way in talking with the people. Invoking, frankly, it's a story that's a little bit hard to make sense of. It. Some commentators think he kind of equated himself with God in his frustration. And so because of this, God says the great liberator Moshe will not enter the land either, but someone else will lead the people in. This is a dark point in the story. So now they're continuing the wilderness, and during this wilderness interlude, before they enter into the promised land, until one generation completely dies out, there's teaching, there's giving of law, and that's how this passage begins in Mattot, where Moshe gives a teaching talking about the importance of vows and how the vows should be kept. However, he says, and this is one of the more troubling parts of the passage, that he says that if a woman who is married makes a vow, she is not bound by it if her husband nullifies it when he finds out about it. So in other words, men are bound by their vows. Married women, are not bound if their husband finds out and nullifies it. Effectively, this is extreme patriarchy. It's saying that women are children who can't make decisions for themselves. It can't be bound by vows, by contracts of their day. Now, in reading this, I can't help but be really offended and upset, but then I have to remember that this kind of law is not that far behind in our history. 50 years ago, 100 years ago, it was not uncommon in many states of the United States that married women could not sell property without their husband's consent. And further back in time, women could not vote, women could not enter into contracts. This was not uncommon at all. And so, while this seems like ancient history, it really isn't. And even to this day, in other parts of the world, there are parts of the world where this kind of attitude is the law of the land. And so, as always with the Torah and with scriptures generally, we can see that we're not just given the good parts, but the bad parts. And this is one of the bad parts, in my opinion. We then continue on into the narrative section. In the narrative, it begins, this is in chapter 31, verse 1, it says, "The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Avenge the Israelite people on the Midianites, then you shall be gathered to your kin." By the way, gathered to your kin, that basically means Moses is going to die after this. But God tells Moses, according to this version of the story, that he's to avenge the Israelite people on the Midianites. Now, the reason for this is because the Midianites took advantage of them in various ways, and yada, yada, yada. But what's troubling about this is, who are the Midianites? Who's close to Moses who is a Midianite? his wife. His wife is a Midianite. His father-in-law Jethro. Remember, he was the one a few passages back who tells Moses that you can't decide everything yourself. You need to delegate authority for this to work. Jethro was a key part of Moses learning to be a leader. He's also a Midianite, and yet this people who influenced Moses, who shaped his life, who gave him a place to go after he fled Egypt the first time, now he is going to annihilate them. And so the Israelites do this. They build up their army, they attack, and they kill all of the adult men. And then they take all the women captive and take the children captive. And then they come back, and I'm going to read now. And so we'll go to, this is in chapter 31, verse 9. We'll pick up the reading. The Israelites took the women and children of the Midianites captive and seized as booty all their beasts, all their herds, and all their wealth. And they destroyed by fire all the towns in which they were settled and their encampments. They gathered all the spoil and all the booty, man and beast. And they brought the captives, the booty, and the spoil to Moses, Eleazar the priest, and the whole Israelite community at the camp in the steppes of Moab, at the Jordan near Jericho. Moses, Eleazar the priest, and all the chieftains of the community came out to meet them outside the camp. And this is where it gets nuts, in my opinion. Verse 14. Moses became angry with the commanders of the army, the officer of the thousands, and the officers of the hundreds who had come back from the military campaign. Moses said to them, "You have spared every female. Yet they are the very ones who at the bidding of Balaam induced the Israelites to trespass against the Lord in the matter of Peor. So the Lord's community was struck by the plague. Now, therefore, slay every man among the children. And slay also every woman who has known a man carnally, but spare every young woman who has not had carnal relations with a man." Whew. What do you do with that? What do you do with a passage like that? When the people came back after having this military victory, they brought back the captives. And Moses berates them because they weren't brutal enough. Because they didn't just kill the combatants, but they also, why didn't they kill the women? And so what does Moses do? He orders that the male children are killed. And then all the women who are not virgins will be killed. Let's begin. There's a couple things here worth commenting. First of all, what happened to the Hebrew people the generation before? When they were in Egypt, and the Egyptian Pharaoh became scared of them, what did he do? He ordered that all the Hebrew young boys would be killed. And now, generation later, what are the Hebrews doing? They are killing all the young boys of Midian. They are becoming the monsters that they condemned. And then the killing of all the women who aren't virgins. You have to understand, this talking about the matter of Peor and all of this, but talking about previously the Israelites had encounters with the Midianites. And according to the story, the Midianite women led the Israelite men astray by their whoring and leading them to false idols and whatnot. Now, we know the context here. The story is written in large part to remind the later readers the importance of monotheism, of not following idols, of not being led away by foreigners. But fundamentally, why is it that the women are condemned and the men aren't? It takes two to tango, as they say. Again, this is more examples of the extreme patriarchy of the Torah. And we're left, it's a pretty disgusting picture, frankly. The hero, Moses, is not the hero anymore in my book. He's gone to the dark side. And this people, they've become a genocidal people. Those who were once the victims of genocide are now committing genocide themselves. What can you say? We'll come back to this. The rest of this passage, the Torah passage of Mattot, deals with the situation as the army of the Israelites was approaching the Promised Land, what would be today Palestine and Israel. They're on the east side of the Jordan. It's a productive land, good for grazing. And the Reubenites and the Gadites, two of the 12 tribes, they say, this is good country.